Welcome to Southern Soul Chats, where this season we will be diving into the stories of individuals who have navigated the deeper waters of faith. I'm your host, Dr. Miranda Ferguson, and together we'll explore the journeys of people who've taken that courageous step forward in their faith. Get ready to be inspired as we uncover the incredible stories of unwavering belief and the remarkable impact it's had. If you're excited to join us on this faith-filled exploration, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Let's step forward. Hey guys, we're so glad to have you back with us for episode 3. Today's title is Walking on Water, and we will be still discussing how we stepped out on faith with God through the journey that we've been talking with you about, and how that has led to extraordinary experiences in my life and my guest's life. Today we're going to infuse this story with Peter, and one of my favorite stories of walking on water. We're going to be kind of going through the Peter story of everyday life and the challenges people face when they step out in faith. Again, let's welcome our guest, Tanya Simmons. Yay! Hey, it is the last episode that she will be on. I am so thankful for you coming and doing these 3 episodes with me, and being so willing to share your story, and because that's hard. You're sharing your story with strangers that don't know you, even though it's you and I talking and we know it. You're really putting yourself out there, and I know that God's going to reward that, and I know that it's going to be a blessing on people who are hearing this and walking through things in life. So I'm really excited because this story is about Peter, Tanya. And what do we know about Peter?
Oh, Peter. Well, as we've gone through this whole experience from the very beginning, particularly when we were when we started listening to Stepping Foward at Cavalier, we were doing Tony Evans, and then you introduced me to Stepping Foward. He talked a lot about Peter, and what I began to realize is that I'm a lot like Peter, and not for the necessarily complimentary ways.
I remember, so the Stepping Foward thing came because I was, during all the court stuff, I really loved elevation worship, and I listened to it a lot. I had no clue that elevation worship was attached to a church called Elevation Church. She was also attached to a man named Stepping Foward, who was the pastor. And so literally that all kind of unrolled in a timely fashion, I believe. And so Stepping Foward, I just love Stepping Foward.
Oh, yeah.
Love Stepping Foward. Love elevation worship.
Very practical pastor.
Just
preacher.
Good.
Yeah.
Just good.
Real life practical.
Yeah. I mean, when you walk away from that, you got something to chew on.
Yeah. Application. Right.
Yeah. And you don't forget it very soon. You don't forget it very soon. So, yeah, I can remember when we would watch some episodes, or it would always be the same phone call. Did you hear that? We were just talking about that. How did he know? How does he know what we're talking about?
Is he listening?
Oh my gosh. He said it. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Those are Stepping Foward moments.
Yeah. Well, for me it was the Peter moment, because Stepping Foward, when he talks about Peter, usually he's talking about him as the obnoxious kid in class. The one you don't want to raise his hand and go, oh, me, because Peter's a little he's a little salty. He also doesn't really have a good rein on his mouth, and says things that maybe he wishes he said. Even through all of his walks with Jesus, remember, he's the one who cut the guy's ear off. Mm-hmm. That's Peter. And so when I say my story is like Peter's, it's not usually in the most complimentary fashion, because I'm like going, oh, yeah, that's me. Because as we walked through this, listening to him talk about Peter, he talked about him, but then he brought it around to how Peter, Jesus always pull Peter to the side, or Peter would, while he's the emotional one, and he gets, his anger gets ahead of him sometimes, and oh, that is so me. I feel like a lot of times Peter was able to see, where he was going. He's also the one who denied Christ 3 times, and he's not the one who eventually, in the end, you see him with John, silver and gold I have none, but what I have I give to you. But through most of the course in the Bible, it's not a complimentary one. So when I say I'm like Peter, I feel like, poor Peter. Yeah.
But Peter, after Jesus dies, Peter is huge. Like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
he's like the church is we have the church because of Peter. So he had a full circle moment, Tanya.
He does. I'm not trying to fill those shoes either, but
And unlike you, I didn't have like one person. As when we were walking and going through things, it would be different people
oh yeah, because we started to see. I think
for me.
yeah, the guy who when he says the loaves and the fish, you're the first person to go. And how much is that going to cost? We don't have that kind of money. Well, we don't have that kind of money, so it's going to host a whole year's wages. That was you a lot of times.
Doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
If I don't see it, I don't believe it.
Yeah. Because, I would say things and you're like going, well, how's that going to work? So,
I've been through many characters. I don't know that I have a one. I have a several.
You do have several characters.
Maybe I'll come out with just one here in the coming days.
Be prepared because Jonah's coming soon to your audience.
Yeah. Jonah's one of my characters for sure.
Well, it's funny because we always talked about how, we feel like we were in this boat together. We're rowing a boat. How many times have we been in a lake that we, might not want to be in, but God put us there to row together because what happens when you're only rowing with one oar is you tend to go in a circle.
Right.
That happens, and so as we would laughingly say that God got tired of us putting separate phone calls into heaven, so he thought he would condense it into at least one line.
Right. He was going to kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah. Sometimes that felt literal. And then so we talked about how, he put us in the boat together to row. We were always, rowing. Sometimes it seemed like we weren't going any place fast. But I think over the course of the past 5 or 6 years, we've looked around and went, oh, we left the smelly lake. And it's at least a less smelly lake for where we're at.
It's getting a little clearer.
Yeah, the water's not quite as murky as it was because we're still very much on a journey.
It's not Galveston water anymore. It's getting closer to maybe Gulf Shores.
Gulf Shores water, which is not as clear if you're not from the Gulf Coast as Destin water is.
Right.
But then we have, I know that we talked about how Moses had a partner, and how, throughout the Bible, we for somehow didn't see, even with our background in church, how, the people in the Bible, they had a partner. Moses had Aaron, and Moses was worried about how he was going to speak, and Aaron really never had to speak for him, but God always has somebody come alongside of them to support them, to make them feel less lonely, because he said that it's not good that man should be alone, and he was talking about husbands and wives, but also partnering in the church and being in community together. And I think I know that you for me have been a great spiritual help. I mean, to remind me to go to dig in, to put my feet down. And
well, it's easier not to do things when you don't have anybody to answer to.
Oh yeah.
And not that you have to answer me, I answer to you, but like tithing, we kept each other in check.
Yeah.
We
accountable.
When things were hard in life, it never failed that if one thing was happening in my life that was rough, you were the cheerleader, man. You were like, you're not going to give up. My favorite phrase from you was, are you calling God a liar, Miranda?
Yes.
And as much as I hated that phrase, it would bring back that, well, no, I'm not. Okay, then you need to stop. And it would never fail. Within a couple of days, whatever was happening with me was circled to you. It would look different, but it was the same thing. And it would come, the same things you just told me would just roll off my tongue for you.
Oh, yeah. So my favorite phrase was, so here's the good news.
I like to bring the good news.
And unfortunately, the good news was usually the news I didn't want to hear.
But the truthful news.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's just because I didn't want to hear it didn't mean I didn't need to hear it.
Right.
It's like put your feet down. Dig in. This is a hard place, but what if you looked at it from this perspective, which is, why it was the good news. It was always scripturally based. We always went to the Bible. I feel like we've always gone to, because I never wanted to give you advice, that was in the flesh. And there were moments where we've tried to do that and been like, ooh, okay, you know what? I'm really sorry. That's fleshly. I really probably should retract that statement. Can we scratch that off the record? Yeah.
Let's start over.
Yeah.
Ask me again.
Yeah. Well, so, and I knew there were times when I was telling you things that you really didn't want to hear. And then I would just say to you, but it's okay because you should remember it because I feel quite certain in about a week, you're just going to be saying it back to me. And sure enough, that's
about a week later
how that went. And it's amazing when God partners you with somebody as he has partnered us, because that's the reason telling this entire story is how God has been so faithful to bring us along with, a partner, a friend that has come alongside me, has been biblically based. As much as we have differences, we also have a lot of things, in common, which I think has helped, to bond us together is, be united in that we are going to stay faithful, even when I know, Shirley, when I was dropping the ball, you were good to come alongside me and go, no, that's probably the wrong direction. And as much as I wouldn't want to hear it, I wanted you to go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. You need to go that way. I couldn't, because you were the voice in my head, pointing me back to God. And, so, we're coming up to the point. So we covered 2019. And which was I'd say it was uneventful. My son got married in 2019, so that's probably not an uneventful thing. But
no, but it's not. It's big in the sense that these are things that when we were walking, we're seeing when we were walking, they were troublesome.
Right. Oh yeah.
Issues
right. Yeah.
But all of a sudden now they've completely changed.
Oh, yeah. These are the things we were praying about.
Yeah.
That have been answered. It's like, how many things have we seen that we prayed about that we've received the answer? And sometimes it didn't always look like we wanted it to look, or we hoped it would look like, but it was always good for us. Yeah. I mean, like sometimes it was like, broccoli is good for us, or asparagus is good for us. It's not the cupcake.
But it's not a hamburger.
It's not. It's the healthy food choices that, sometimes you don't want to make, but you need to make. And so we went through 2019. I started back to school again. Went back to get my BS in nursing. That started in July of 2019. That was a hard season in my life for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was an accelerated program that was already, it's going to be fast. I love school, but this was an intense program. This leads us up to 2019 into 2020. And, I think a lot of people know, or everybody knows what happened in 2020. The world shut down pretty much. But in March 2020, I was in the clinicals, 24 to 36 hours being up straight. It was extremely stressful for me.
And y'all need to know, Tanya's not a night person.
At all.
She don't do nights.
No. And
she doesn't drive at night. She doesn't talk at night. If she's up at night, there is something wrong.
Yeah, I go to sleep. When the sun sets, I go to sleep. That's what I do. And in clinicals, we had things we had to turn in the next morning, and we'd get work the night before. And you'd have to work on it all night long. This was 3 and 4 times a week. That was incredibly stressful. And I remember telling you on the phone, I just don't know how I'm going to keep doing this. I am going to keep doing it, but I just don't know how well I'm going to do it. And then in March of 2020, the world shut down.
Yeah, well, it was coming. It hadn't quite shut down yet because we had Roman in April.
The world started to shut down.
Yeah, so everything we now realize that what we're watching on the news is about to be a realization for us.
And they start closing the hospitals, even to students.
That's right, because my kids went on spring break and they never went back to school.
Yeah.
Oh, that is right.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking it. Yeah, so we were starting. You're right.
Yeah.
We were starting the measures because in April, late April, we had Roman, and my doctor's like, "Look, this is your 5th kid. It is not safe to be here. It's not safe to have him here." I had yet another C-section.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to get you out of here in 24 hours.
Which
that is unheard of.
Completely.
And I mean, he's a smart man, and it was a smart move.
Yeah.
And because I've had 5 kids, I knew what to do.
Right.
And I had help in my house.
And you had 4 kids. You had 3 kids at home because your oldest son is not there, and he's grown. But you still had 3 kids that you needed to get home to as well.
Yeah.
And
my husband couldn't come to the hospital.
Yeah.
He was allowed to be there for the birth.
Yeah.
But my mom was supposed to come here and keep the kids so he could be at the hospital. We could do the whole process. My mom couldn't travel.
COVID.
She's a cancer survivor, so she definitely can't get COVID because we don't know. We haven't made any big decisions yet about COVID.
Yeah.
So she can't come. My sister can't fly because she can't. Everybody's scared to death.
Oh yeah, nothing's happening. And so in March, when I just can't do it anymore, the world shuts down, and suddenly clinicals are online, and I don't have to go anywhere, and I don't have to stay up all night long because the whole complexion, it took them 2 weeks to figure out what they were going to do for clinicals. That gave me a break all by itself from being up 24 to 36 hours 2 or 3 times a week, which is so difficult. And I know that I want to be sensitive here, and I know that a lot of people, had a lot of hard times with COVID, but I think for you and I, it was a reset time. A time for, I know that for me in that March, God really used it to give me some relief, because I had been praying. I had no idea he would do COVID. He would use COVID in that way, but I did thank him.
We called it a sprinkle of COVID.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I remember I was sitting in the bathtub, and it was like going, oh, he sprinkled, and when this thing all happens, I'm going to let you be home from the hospital, and here's your portion. Here, this is helping you, and I appreciated it. I know, like I said, I want to be sensitive. I know a lot of people struggled, but for me, when COVID, shut everything down, it really did. That's how he helped me there. It eased the burden there, and so I want to ask you, what was the first thing that once we went through COVID and that was so difficult? What was the first thing that you did? Do you remember when COVID lifted?
Yeah. So, but before COVID lifted, let me say this: you guys have got to understand. We have 5 kids. 5 kids now. Chance is still living at home. He doesn't leave
that's right.
yet.
He sure is.
And he's in his 20s. So here comes lockdown with a 20-year-old.
I forgot about that. He is still there. Yeah.
I have a baby, so he can't even try to run around and come in because the unknown is happening right now. We have the unknown, and so Jeremy's job plants him at home.
Yeah.
So y'all got to remember, we went from not living together. Now we've had a few years to work out, him going to his job, me going to my job, me being home, the kids, and now 24/7.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because he came home 24/7.
And not only are we together 24/7, but we're with our children 24/7.
All 5 of them.
All 5 of them. Now, I will say there was a blessing in that, in the sense that I have a new baby. When we have babies, we shut ourselves down anyway. We stay home for a period of a couple of months. There's a bunch of us. We try not to go out. We don't like to wreak havoc on the world, or waitresses or restaurants. So we tend to stay inward with our kids being small. So it wasn't a horrible thing to be locked down. It was just that we're all together in this house that became very small very quick.
Oh yeah.
And so the world stopped. I still had to travel. So I'm still having to travel. So I'm still traveling in the midst of that. I'm still doing all these things. And during this time of COVID, I have a very uncomfortable phase in my life.
Yeah.
I remember literally one week talking about the flowers in my backyard, and I'm not a gardener. So these flowers were like, I'd come a long way. And I remember telling Tanya, if I ever leave this house, I'm digging up every flower in this yard. I'm taking it with me. And it was like that was a trigger, because over the next week or two, I circled back around to Tanya, and I was like, I got to tell you something. I am so uncomfortable. Like nothing. I'm not comfortable in my house. I'm not comfortable in my backyard. I'm seeing things differently. Like if we, I don't know what's going on. And it was weird. It was really, really strange that all the things that had given me a lot of joy that I said were mine, all of a sudden it was like, oh
yeah,
this is really weird. And so again, like you said, Stepping Foward, so you can't go to church,
right?
Can't go anywhere. So Stepping Foward became a Sunday ritual.
Oh yeah, I remember Easter Sunday. I'm in my pajamas.
Rattle.
Oh yeah, I'm in my pajamas, and we're doing church, and we're watching it, and we're texting each other. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Oh, can you believe that? I mean, it's like we're having church. It's just online, because everybody's having church online at this point. I just never expected to have it in my pajamas.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you asked me where I was. So we're now up to December of 2021. That is when I think the world started moving back again.
Yeah.
I remember my kids were, I believe they were back in school. Even though they were back in school, like church was still saying, don't come back yet. Like, let's kind of see how this rides out. So church was the very first thing for us. And that was in December. And church might have even been open a little longer for that. And I had to just walk through that, because I do have a small child still. And then I have Bo. And so, it was like, oh, do I really want to go back to church? But my spirit was like, you need to go back to church.
Right,
like you need to be around other people. When is the right time?
Yeah.
Is there a right time? Because in the moment, nothing was the right time. And it was Christmas season, and the church decorates, and it's beautiful. And I finally just had this mindset of, I don't care. None of us had gotten COVID. We had the same experience you did.
Oh, yeah.
I want to be very sensitive as well, but I saw a lot of blessing out of COVID. I know there was a lot of hurt and a lot of things that happened with people, but God, there was a lot of provision during COVID that we received.
Yeah, because my husband, who works on a ship, a lot of people, I want to be sensitive. A lot of people did lose their jobs or lost their income and
lost their lives.
Yeah, lost their lives. But
Loved ones.
I will say that in our household, my husband never missed work. I mean, he worked on a ship, and that in a miracle was itself. He was in a closed environment with people, but he continued to work. I stayed home. I was very happy to do that because I'm an introvert, and so staying home for me was
easy.
Yeah, it was easy. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed being home, so it was good. But I don't think we ever had David did contract COVID in 2021, but in 2020, oddly enough, when the world was shutting down, he never got COVID.
And we never got, there's 5 of us, so it would make, 7 if you count my husband and I. So there's 7 people in our house. You would think that the odds would say somebody in that house is going to get COVID. And none of us to this day have had COVID.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And, my husband did get it, but he was, he recovered.
And he was on a ship when he got it.
He sure was. Yeah, he was in New Orleans when that hurricane.
Yep. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, he was there. And so, COVID has really opened our eyes to a different thing. In June of 2020, we bought a property, and we bought some property in Florida, and that led to again the getting out of debt. And we continue to circle back around to that. But when we bought that property, I thought we were buying it for one reason. If you remember what I told you, so we're buying it for this, but that. God doesn't always tell you why you're doing things. He just lets you. Yeah, he just lets you think it's for one thing, but it turns out to really be another. You should probably prepare yourself for that as well.
Yeah.
So we were able to take that property the very next year and use that to get out of debt. And I need to back up to February of 2021 when I looked at my husband out of the blue, riding in the car, and looked at him. I said, we're going to be out of debt by December. And I remember he looked at me and went, Not that he's not a man of faith, because he is a Christian, but there was no lead up to it. There was no reason for.
Yeah, it wasn't like y'all were discussing how can we get out of debt, how can we better ourselves financially. This was everyday business still.
Yeah, still. It was just like all of a sudden, God dropped in my spirit, y'all are going to be out of debt. And so I just opened my mouth and it just came out, kind of like Peter, I just say things. And he was like, okay. And then in June of 2021 was when I suddenly felt, you need to check on, see how much that land is selling for. Again, I had no idea. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about the property that we owned or anything. And I just kind of opened it up to see, and it had doubled in value. In a year's time, it had doubled in value. And by being obedient like that, that opened the door for us to start getting out of debt. And before December, we were completely out of debt. I think we still owed on the truck, but that was the only thing that we owed on was that truck. And I would not have known that we were selling the property for twice as much as we had paid for it just a year before. But that in itself was how God led the way for us to become debt free, which was a miracle all by itself. And
I was still working, so God's still leaning in on me at that time.
Yeah,
and I'm a planner, and I look for ways to navigate through that. And so there have been some things to set the stage because we still had that debt, the credit card debt, but we were starting to cut through some debt that I had previously. I had some smaller debt, so we were really starting to see a card here drop off on the smaller things, a card here. We rolled over some things into a loan so we wouldn't be paying so much interest, and then we would have a hard target. So we were making some good financial choices, but we weren't quite able to step into the way you stepped into it and was one day wake up and go, and holy moly, how did that happen?
Well, that was probably because God knew I needed extra.
Yeah. So we, but I am super, I'm jumping ahead here, but I am super glad to say that last month we made our last credit card payment, and we are credit card debt free.
And 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Oh, we were not.
Well, we didn't even know that was on our horizon.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
so,
God brought us.
our goal is our goal now is to shift that and move into, taking the opportunities to start with like a vehicle and then a house. And our struggle is a little different paying off. It takes us a little slower because we do have children, and there's, a financial piece of that comes with them. So we have to take the opportunity. And because of COVID, even though we were blessed during that season and that was not a bad season for us, we lost all the overtime, all the traveling. We didn't choose to vaccinate, so he was not allowed to do certain things with his job, which took him, across to a platform. And so we really had
just
to
the whole how God really moves on our tithing, because even with those things,
because we still tithe.
That's right. Oh yeah.
We're still tithing.
Are you still tithing?
I'm still tithing.
Yeah, I'm still tithing. Yeah, it's like going. Yeah, I still have those moments. They're not as many. They're I will say they're fewer and farther between.
Yeah.
But there are moments when I go, oh, and that.
Well, and I added a new element during COVID, and it had nothing to do with COVID, but I added, and I must have picked it up, heard it somewhere, I don't know, but I added a new element, and I shared it with you that instead of just being the first thing to do, I started praying over it.
Yes, I remember.
I started literally before I would even pay it, I would just close my eyes, and it was it's pretty much a simple prayer at the same time. Lord, help me know how to use this money, or how to use the rest of this money to stretch and to meet the needs that we need to do.
Right.
Lord, if you provide more, help me to have the courage to put it as an offering.
Right.
Help me to be a cheerful giver. I thank you for this opportunity. I mean, just something like that. And then I pay the tithe, and then I go for the list of the week. Here's the rest of the bills.
Yeah.
So that's been my newest element to tithing.
And that's important. And I remember when you shared that with me, and I'm like, and that's when I incorporated that. And this is how we lift each other up, how we make each other, more accountable to God's word or things like that. And when you told me that, because I was just like, well, I'm tithing. That
was big.
Yeah.
Don't get it jaded. That was big.
Yeah. But, and then when you told me that, I'm like going, oh, well, I should pray over that. Oh, well, okay. That sounds like a good plan. And then it just got a little sweeter and a little better, because he blesses so much your obedience, and he wants to have a relationship with us so much, and he wants us to be obedient. But he also, just like as mothers, we want our grown children to call us.
Yeah.
Because they want to talk to us.
Yeah, he wants to hear from you.
Yeah, he wants to hear from you. Yeah, so that was an important part there as well.
So so you asked me where I was. I went to church. Where did you go?
I'm an introvert.
Oh, yeah, you don't leave your house. People are not your jam. I forgot.
No. Yeah. Remember, we're opposites on that. I'll give you all my money, but none of my time. And you'll give people all your time, but none of your money. So
yeah, we're working through that, people. We're working through that.
Guess where God calls me to give the stuff now? I still tithe, but he's also calling me to give my time.
Yeah, and I give my time like a crazy person, but it's gotten to where I've realized that the reason why provision is there is so that you can give it away.
Yeah.
It's not to hoard it. Like that whole talent story has a whole new meaning to me from the Bible. Like I used to think it meant one thing, but now I see that God gives you provision to provide for you, but also to be able to do with others for others, and which has been a bigger part of our current life now, especially with the new setup that we have.
Yeah, and for me, it's giving my time and going to church. Because I'm like going
where people are.
Yeah, where people are. Because it's not that I don't want to go to church; it's that there's people there,
and they might want to talk to her.
Oh yes, yeah. That's the thing they want to see. My husband's an extrovert as well, and when he works on a ship and I have to go, people want to talk to me. People I don't know, and that's my that's my discomfort zone. So he's working on that, and I'm doing more there because I'm an introvert. Yeah, that's who I am. But we've moved forward to we're in 2020, and then so we're coming forward 2021. We've gotten out of debt. We're taking care of those matters. So we're speeding up to February. And
2022, right?
2022, yeah. And, I'm just really curious to know, how did faith play a role in your decision to start this ministry?
That's funny. It didn't. Matter of fact, no, it was not. No.
So you're saying that it wasn't your decision to start
Right.
it?
It wasn't my decision. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't what I wanted to do.
Oh,
And
the
it
Jonah.
wasn't
Jonah. Yeah.
So let me tell you my Jonah story.
Yeah.
How about that? So here's the deal, guys. In 2022, February, we were coming off, everything was really starting to be a little more comfortable. Our church hosted an event that was going to run over a span of like 5 Thursday nights. And it was exciting, A, because I was going to get out of my house. B, this person that was coming, I'd never seen them before. And so it was exciting just to get to kind of see them because they're well known and they're from this area. So I invite my neighbor across the street. We come together. I don't realize just how popular this person is. So I just roll up like 30 minutes early when I should have got there an hour early. So I'm sitting in the way back, but that's okay. I'm just glad to be there. And the program starts and the music is amazing. Like the Holy Spirit is just filling the place and it's good. And to sidetrack for a moment, you got to know that because things had opened, classes were resuming at Lone Star. So I was expecting in January to get a call to possibly pick up maybe a few online classes. Turns out that wasn't the case because they had decided that all the adjuncts were still going to be on pause. For education, the numbers were horrible. Like everybody was afraid that if you were going to be a teacher, you were going to contract COVID. And so people were really backing out. I mean, they was like, no, if we think we're going to pass on education. So the numbers weren't there. I was upset. When I told you guys a few episodes back, my student loans are, when you have 5 degrees, your student loans are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so my student loans are there, but I'm not doing anything. I'm wondering, have I wasted all this time? So I'd been thinking through that a lot. That was really in my brain of when am I going to get back? I was ready. I was ready to go back. I was ready to get back in the classroom. I love to teach. It is the one thing that I've always felt that I didn't screw up in my life. Like relationships with men, as a mother, sometimes you feel like you're not perfect. Just friendships, but teaching, ding, 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 ding. Like I found my place. It makes me happy. I'm good at it. I'm able to share the light with people. Kids to high schoolers to college. I've taught it all. And so I was missing it.
Yeah, I remember that was where you were like going, okay, I'm ready to go back.
Yeah, and plus I've been in my house with my husband, who is still, by the way, working from home every single day.
Yeah.
And my children, 2 of them are in school, but the other 2 are little and they're home. So it's just life, okay?
Right.
It's life, but now we're all still together doing life. So I go to the church event. We'll get back to that. I go to the church event. The music starts. It's amazing. I'm so glad to be there. It doesn't get very far into the worshiping and the production that I hear in that voice, that voice we talked about the last episode last week, that voice that I recognize that I like to pretend like when I don't like what it says, I don't recognize it. So I second guess it a lot. But the voice clearly says to me, you're never going back.
Yeah.
And I go, wait, what? You're never going back in the classroom. Never. This is what you're going to do. What you're seeing. This is what I'm calling you to. And I'm like, whoa, time out. Put a pause. We're going to pause this. What is that? What does that mean, Lord?
Yeah.
And he didn't dial back.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
like give instructions. The bottle didn't fall from the sky with a little rolled up piece of paper. And so you can go ahead and know that the first night that I was doing, it was done for me. I'm sitting there the whole time going, did I really hear that? Was that God?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I say that?
Yeah. Well, I remember when you told me.
Yeah. So I leave there that night. And I am dying to talk to her. Now, it's late. She's asleep.
Yeah.
So I can't call her because that's all. You don't call unless somebody's dying or you're giving birth to a kid.
Yeah.
So I have to wait. And I call her. And y'all got to know. So this is it feels like an eternity of this night because I'm sitting there baffled.
Yeah.
How can this be? I mean, I said I was never going to ministry. And why would you choose me? Because I haven't done nothing special. I'm nobody. You know what? No, this is okay. Clearly, I've screwed up. I need to talk to Tanya. She is not going to believe this. So, sure enough, the next day I call her up and I'm like, we need to talk. I could tell you what happened last night. And so I tell her, and the first words out of her mouth were,
I'm not surprised.
And I go, say what? What do you mean you're not surprised?
It's like, well, you do remember way back when, when I told you, that you're going to need to start practicing praying out loud because you're going to be doing this on stage. And you're like, what? And she acts like, when I tell her, she's never heard this before in her life for a moment. And then she's like, oh.
But still, it was like, no.
Yeah.
It was like, I know. And I swear I swear her to secrecy. I tell her, you cannot tell a soul.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. We're not circling back around to this. Like, this is a hard no for me.
And I remember thinking, well, okay, I'm not going to say anything about it, but eventually you're going to have to deal with it. I remember thinking that.
Yeah, so I did what any respectable Christian woman would do. I ignored it.
And stuck your head in the sand.
Stuck my head in the sand, or I like to put it in, when I share the story with people, I went ahead and got in the belly of the whale.
Yeah.
I was Jonah.
Yeah.
And
I think first you went to Tarshish.
yeah.
Yeah, because you're still applying for jobs.
Well, so what happens, there's a 6-month period, okay? So from me swearing her to secrecy, I told no one. I tried to forget about it. I applied for jobs. I had job interviews.
And we didn't talk about it.
We didn't talk about it. And so you got to understand, let me set the stage for a minute, that this was prime time to get a job in teaching because either teachers had left, God forbid something had happened, or they didn't want to teach anymore. So like the floodgate that I have been waiting on of opportunity was there. I'm interviewing. I'm getting no's. And I'm like, what is this? Yeah. But I'm not thinking anything about that, right? I mean, I'll have a thought, but it'll be like, no, whatever. Yeah. Still not going to share this. So this goes on for 6 months of me having an internal battle. And there was a lot of conversation. Like, I remember one night laying in the bed, I talked to God very like he's sitting next to me, right? Like, so I'm like, wow. What is this?
Yeah, she's much more courageous than I am.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this? And how do you expect me to tell my husband this? Because, like, Lord, if I do something like this is a game changer. And I haven't had a paycheck in a while, and we have bills and debt and kids, and you wanted me to pay off stuff like. No.
And I thought I was supposed to do this.
Yeah. And I'm sure, Lord, I'm sure that you told me to do this. I see your hand in it. I see how it's great. Like, this was the plan. I mean, the plan was always for me, remember, keyword me, was to teach here in Texas part-time till my kids got a little older, make a transition into a 4-year university so I could be a
professor,
be the full-time professor.
That's what you said.
That was the goal.
That was your plan.
But it was in a great place to be here. So I thought surely that's why God brought us to Texas, right? It was for opportunity and growth, and we could continue that for my husband and myself. And so 6 months of just floundering around thinking, how would I ever tell this to my husband? Because there's something about ministry you got to understand if you haven't thought about this. It becomes that your life is no longer just your life.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to share. And it's not just you. You have to be willing to share your life. And that's not just the highlight mountaintop moments. And guys, I have a lot of low valley moments that I'm just not proud of.
Yeah.
And then my husband the same. And I'm sure everybody listening can relate to that. But the difference between in that moment of me thinking of you and I is that you're not spilling yours out in front of God and everybody so that you can come back around in this world we live in and be thrown back in your face.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, even I've worked through a lot of that stuff because I was a marriage and family therapist. So school helped me work through a lot of that. So I'm okay with telling my business because I've come to terms with it over the last 5 years and what God's done. Like God, he forgave me. He redeemed me. He gave me a new life. Even though I was already a Christian, I wasn't, like I said, I was a Christian who went to church on Sunday, showed up. Is that enough to get me in heaven? But I wasn't really doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
So it was okay. How am I going to tell this to my husband? Yeah. Right. So 6 months passes, and one night we're going to bed, and he makes kind of this joke about me not being able to get a job. And it's just one of those husband-wife moments. Right. And before I know it, I pop off and I say, it doesn't matter anyway. God told me that I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to be in ministry. And I thought that I could like throw it out there and we'd roll over it. And he's like, wait, what? So like, you're going to be the next Joyce Meyer. Is that what you think? And I was like, no, I'm not. And that's not what I mean. It's not what I mean. It's just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. And he's like, let's talk about it. And I'm like, no. So we go to bed. I think that he'll probably brush it off. He's out of sight, out of mind. No. The next morning, he's waiting on me. And he's like, sit down, we're going to talk. And we have a 3-hour discussion where it goes from top to bottom, everything. And he is so gracious and so excited.
Yeah.
And ready to set the world on fire. And I'm sitting in the corner going, I'm still going, oh, don't get this confused. I'm still going to teach somewhere. Like, I'm pretty sure this ain't my thing. Because in the meantime, like, my church had really been on me about serving in the preschool area. And I was like, are y'all crazy? Like, I have preschoolers. I come to church to get free babysitting and Jesus. Yeah. Like, I need this time for my sanity. And so, so as I'm talking through that with him, and we're even talking about that situation, he's like, maybe you should go do that. Like, maybe you need to start. So he backs me in a corner. He's excited. I'm not, but he says, what are you going to do?
Right.
I'm like, I'm not going to do nothing. Yeah. Did you miss the part where I said I don't want to do this? Like, I didn't grow up saying I can't wait to be in ministry. Yeah. It's not that I don't love Jesus, y'all, but I thought we were doing something else, and I was good with it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize that there was a part where we could, like, switch up the plan.
Yeah.
And so we talk about it. I still am floundering around. I do commit to the preschool. I tell her, I call her. I'm like, I know you're going to think I'm like crazy, but
because you'd already told her no.
Yeah, I told her a solid no.
Yeah.
And so I call her and tell her, okay, look, I think I might. This is maybe a couple of days later. I think I might do it. And she's like, I knew God was going to take care of it. God already told me you were going to do it. I was just waiting on you.
So funny.
And I was like, well, imagine that.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, Jeremy knows now. This is a couple of days later. We have a pastor who had been kind of he was sent off for a year in Germany. They went on for our church, represent our church in another church in Germany. He comes back, and I am so excited he's coming back this weekend because all this stuff's brewing, and I just really wanted to share with him. And so they come over, and I share with them what's going on, and he's just pouring into me, and he's asking questions, but he sees I have no answers. I'm not really committed to this. I'm searching, I'm looking. And he gives me this one piece of advice, and he says, Miranda, you don't have to know what to do, but you have to put your yes on the table.
Yeah, and that was so good. That was such a defining moment.
And I just was like, oh my, I have to put my yes on the table. So that's like a Saturday. The next day was church, and talk about defining moments. I had that Sunday a tryout to be on our praise and worship team. Yeah. And so it was immediately following church. I was nervous because I haven't sang in so many years and wasn't really confident in my ability to even be able to do it again. So we're in church, and again, praise and worship's great. We're sitting right where we always sit, and I feel my husband just take his hand and put it on the back of my head. And it's a very hard to explain. I didn't really know what was happening, right? But when he did it, I felt this sensation through my whole body. Like I looked at it, and I look at him, and he's like squalling, crying. And I'm thinking, what was that? Because I don't know. What was that? So church is over. He like is ready to get out of there pretty quick for some reason. And I'm not understanding what's happening. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Because he's like crying the whole rest of church. I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he's like, nothing. You good luck with your thing. I got to go. I'm going to go take the kids. I'll see you at home. So I said, okay. So I go on and do the audition. And then when I come home, I walk in our house and circle around the corner to the kitchen. He's fine until he looks at me, and he starts again, just like somebody turned the faucet on. And so I asked him what was wrong. He's like, I can't talk about it with you. And I said, like, am I dying or something? Like, did you get a word? And is this my days are ending? And he's like, no, I just can't talk about it. Can we please talk about it later? And I was like, man, and telling me you want to talk about something later is the worst thing you can do, because I am going to keep on and 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 keep on until I get you to tell me the thing that you won't tell me, because I need to know. And so, so later he got a piece of paper. He's like, I can't physically tell you, but I wrote it down, and I want you to go read it. And to just sum it up for all you guys, he was praying, and God just put a word in his spirit, and he said, she is anointed. Put your hand on her head and bless her, and I will take care of the rest. And so that I look at him and I say, what is this supposed to mean? And so I start looking up words like anointed.
Yeah. I remember you told me that.
You know, what does this look like? What does this mean? You know, what do we do with this? So, you know, what do I do with this? That's the question. And so the next thing that happens is I'm in the preschool ministry, and you know, I meet the girl I work with the most, and we kind of start talking about life and our story. And I'm enjoying doing some of the things with her that we're doing and the setting up and trying to help them steer and gear this for the kids. And through that relationship, she asks me to come to the global leadership summit, which is Craig Rochelle's deal. And so, I mean, I didn't really have anything else to do. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do. Yeah, sure. So I agree to go and do that. She and I are working on the room for the month, the theme. We're decorating it. So it's this themed room. And I get a phone call. So I excuse myself from the room and I go take the phone call because I don't recognize a number. And it's a big community college here in Texas that's close to me. That's the feeder school to Texas A&M. And they have my CV. And they want to interview like the next day.
Yeah.
And I just put my yes
on the table. And
so my brain is moving really quickly, right? And it's shuffling around. And I'm going, what do I do? What do I do? And so like I advanced the conversation. And and it's kind of hard to hear her, so I'm having to re-ask some questions. And she says it's face to face. You have to, like, do you understand that this is not a work from home job? Yeah, that's fine. And here's the interview, and can you be there? And yeah. And then I just kind of stop her and I said, you know what? I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, I remember when you called me and told me that.
I hung up the phone and because I was at church, if I had not been at church, I would have lost it. Like I hung up the phone and I was so upset and such a gut punch and such I
just turned down.
I just said
the job that
this is what I've been, because that for me, that would have been, I would have spent some time there and you know, got my skills right on tap. And then I would have tried to move probably to Texas A&M and teach there in the education department. But I said, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said,
the thing that you thought you'd been working for.
Yeah.
Since you'd been
I was
in education.
waiting.
Yeah.
Do you hear that? Waiting.
Yeah.
And so in the weeks prior to that, like God had put on my spirit 1 year, this thing about 1 year, and I didn't understand it. Like 1 year from now. Now this is in July, so that's when we tell y'all July is important. Right. So in July we get this 1 year thing, 1 year, and I'm like,
it's every July.
It's every July, and I'm like, 1 year. Okay, what does that mean? So I go to the leadership summit. It's amazing. The opening thing that goes on is like they do this little thing with music, and there's a girl there. And it talks about like being at the crossroad of making a decision. And this girl had to make the decision to go through the hard stuff. I mean, it was really well done. And it talks in the girl's story, it reflects that a year later, she was standing in front of people and teaching, and she couldn't see that. And it was like God was like going, see, this is what I'm trying to tell you. So the 1 year was repressed again. And then every person that talked, there was something that I was struggling with in this process I was going through that was just being reiterated, that like, you're right where you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So there was that. And then in the middle of all this, there was like other conversations with people at our church who were just really supporting. One in particular had suggested that maybe I start pastoral training in the fall when school goes back. And that was really kind of weird because I'm like, I'm not trying to be a pastor. Like I'm not trying to be a pastor. I'm a teacher. I don't know where this all fits in. And during that leadership summit, she came to me and she was like, I got approval. You start in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. Smile on my face. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah. And I'm going, what am I doing? Right? What am I doing? So, we had also had a trip in July. We had this really kind of crazy trip that happened.
That came up, yeah.
And we take this 8-day trip. We pack our kids up.
Didn't you get sick right before that?
I think that happened when I came back. Yeah, it did. So we go on this trip. What the trip did was my spirit started stirring about knowing that I was going to be with a bunch of complete strangers. I was going to know one person, just one. And there were going to be a lot of people there that I was going to be spending time over the wedding, the different wedding details and events. And something in my spirit started asking me, what are you going to tell them you do when they ask you?
Oh, yeah. I remember that too.
And my first response is, well, I'm a doctor of education. I'm a teacher. And it was like, are you really? Well, not technically, not at the moment, but like, yeah. But what are you at the moment?
Yeah.
Well, at the moment, I think I'm going into ministry. Oh, are you going to tell them that? So it spent 8 days, 4 of which I was with all these people who continually would say, oh, it's nice to meet you. Well, who are you here for? Well, what do you do? Well, I have a doctorate in education, but I've decided to step away because at this moment now, I've turned my notice into Lone Star that I'm leaving. I don't do my trainings, which automatically puts me out anyway. So I tell them, and I get a lot of funny looks and a lot of people asking me a lot of questions that I can't answer.
Right.
I just can't answer.
And so what are you doing? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't really know, but I know I'm going in the ministry. I think, can you get back to me on that?
Yeah.
So it put me with a bunch of strangers that I had to practice telling that to, and it wouldn't matter. I was never going to see him again. And there was one particular couple there that the husband was a preacher, and there was a moment after the wedding that I got to spend some time with her, and I shared my story with her, and she just gave me such compassion and understanding, and I couldn't understand all this stuff, and it was easy to talk to a stranger, right? Because you don't know them, and they're not going to really judge you.
Yeah.
But she was just encouraging me, and the one thing she said that I'll never forget is she was like, you need to know with God that nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. And that was such good information because I felt like everything I had done was lost. I'm not a teacher anymore.
Yeah.
Why did I go to school for all this? I don't know who I am, what I'm doing. This is so out of character for me. So we come home. I do get sick. And it's just like a regular sick. Like I get strep throat, which I usually get when I'm completely stressed out. But what was so crazy about that was that God grounded me in my room for 2 days. And where I was sick and walking through that, he really started putting things in my head because I have a business degree, but it was not in nonprofits.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and before I left for the trip, I'd went ahead and turned in my paperwork. Like I'd went ahead and got some things to kind of in play. So as I'm laying there sick, and I should be trying to get better, I have this notebook because God's just talking to me, and I'm writing things down. I'm like, nonprofit, not 501c3. What is that? Like, holy crap, what do I do with that? You know, so I'm looking and researching, and I would not have been able to do that normally because I would have been tending to my kids. But now I'm sick in the bed for 3 days, 3 days. So I start walking through that. I start researching. I go ahead. I'd been reading something, and the name just like came. And I was like, that's the name. I called you up. I was like, this is the name.
Yeah.
Stepping Foward Mnistries. And there was a lot to that. And so I do the business license. I find out the process, like board members. Who am I going to have for board? We don't even know people here. We don't have family. We don't have strong friends. God starts chucking it out. Here they are. I have no real reason of why they are who they are on this board, their positions. But I'm just like, okay, so I get better. I get everything really situated. I get all the paper turned in to be a big nonprofit in the state of Texas, pay my money, get my name secured, all that stuff. And I'm looking at resources on how do you do this? What's the process? Because research is my jam. So I just I'm researching. And I asked these 6 people. One of them's my husband, so he's by default had to say yes. But there's 5 of them that I have to go to and say, look, please don't ask me a lot of questions because I don't have answers, but would you be willing to do this? And over a spread of time, they all say yes. And in that moment, I asked myself, am I crazy or are they crazy? Because this don't make sense. I expected a no, right? Because what logical person will be on a board for a ministry that the person don't know what they're doing? All I can tell you is God's going to do something big, and I really feel it. I don't know what it is. I'm really confused. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just being obedient.
Yeah.
And they all say yes. And so in the meantime, between all that, I take another trip to Nashville to see that same couple that just got married. It was kind of a weird situation because they were really busy, and it left me a lot of time to myself in a weird place. And God just really was stirring and moving. and made Nashville a really special place in my heart, that I do believe one day that we'll have some kind of tie there to Nashville. I think God was setting a stage. Again, working with me and talking and whispering things to me in my quiet time. He seems to separate me either through sickness or strange trips to get me alone to talk to me. So that was really big, and how he moved there. But not, and then he started kind of sending people. There would be I was like, Lord, who, what, when, where? And so besides the board members, he started sending people that were going to give encouragement. And what I wouldn't know a year later or time later, this time of the year now, that they would just be people who are just pouring into me in so many amazing ways. And believing this, which seems a little bizarre, really, to me, it's all like, what are we doing here? But like, he had set these people in place. And so the next thing that was really amazing was that we had to set up a 501c3. And so if anybody knows anything about the IRS, you know that they don't get in a hurry for anything. So I'd been dragging my feet because A, it was going to cost money I didn't have. B, I wasn't really sure how to do it. Like, what does that look like? And the more I would look into it, the harder it was to figure that out. And one by one, God knocked it out. Like, out of nowhere, we had a neighbor show up and said God had put it on their heart to give something to us. I had shared with them what I was doing. I was leaving my job and doing this. I open it up. It's in a check for the exact amount that's going to cost me to file the taxes. And so it does two things. A, it pays for them. But B, it puts me directly next to somebody who lives by me who's going to put pressure on me to go, where'd you put that money? Right. Like, what'd you do with it? So now I know that I have to do this because they just gave me this amount of money to do it. And I live next to them. So it's not like you can wiggle out of that. And I still was kind of dragging my feet, didn't know. I had a lunch with a friend here in Texas and was really trying to get some ideas and answers from her. She was kind of like, she gave some really solid stuff, but she's just like, I don't know some of this stuff. And when I got in my car, there was a turning moment for me where God was like, stop wasting your time. Go home and do it now.
Do not delay.
And 126 pages later, like, I just sat down and started. It's like, I'm done. I had found something somewhere on the internet. It kind of helped me lay it out. I had found, I bought this little packet for $35 that it was guaranteed that it would be the right way and that you could kind of go through. One of my board members is huge in business, just lots of experience. He reviewed it. We spent hours going through every single paragraph, cleaning it up, asking questions. Is this what you want? Is it? If I couldn't answer it, I'd have to go back and research it. So finally, and come to find out, one of my board members does taxes and money, and this was her job. So she knew exactly how to help me fill out the paperwork and do all the formulas. Because y'all, this is no small feat. This is a huge document, and it's extremely important because you'll lose your nonprofit status for a 501c3 being tax deductible. And so we finally get it all cleared up. We get it all together, cleared up. I finish it, and I'm ready to mail it in about a week before we're about to leave on a family vacation, a ski vacation last November. So I text my board, I tell them it's ready, and I ask them to could you just pray? Could you pray over this? And I took it, stuck it in the mail. Everybody had told me, including my lady on my board, that, look, don't freak out. It's 6 months minimum. Yeah. There's a tracking. You can watch it. 6 months minimum. Just sit down and wait the 6 months out. I mean, we can still operate, but it was really what it was 6 months more of preparation, because I'm in pastoral training. It's about to wrap up. Pastoral for this session, pastoral training has been huge because God's moving me. Not only is he moving this ministry through the structure and organization, but he's moving my heart and what it really means to be in a role like this and what's expected, and laying things on the altar, which correlated back to my uncomfortableness, because what God was doing was setting my heart in the stage for reminding me that nothing's mine. Right. Not my house, not my flowers, not my kids, not my husband, not my cars, not my friends, not my clothes. It's all given from him to be used for him. It's a gift. Right. And in any minute, it's not that he takes the gift away, but he can change the gift, just like he changed what I thought I was supposed to do. It's not what I think. It's what he thinks. It's his plan. And so as we're moving through that, we turn the paperwork in. I take off on the trip. And in true to fashion, I am checking that tracker every minute. And every minute it keeps telling me the same thing. You are 600 documents behind. It's going to be 6 months to a year. All they didn't have flashing on there was stop asking. I do this the whole time. I would stop for a couple of days. On that trip on Wednesday, I did it again. Stopped for a couple of days, did it before we came home, and really got at that point settled into, okay, Miranda, it's good. This buys you 6 months. Yeah. You don't have to do anything. You can just kind of sit here and see what you're going to learn through pastoral training and all that good stuff. So I come home from the trip. We haven't checked our mail in a week. I go out to the mailbox. I knew I was supposed to get a confirmation that they had received it, so I didn't freak out when I saw the IRS letter that comes, how you freak out when you see anything from the IRS because you're pretty sure you're in trouble. So it had Stepping Foward Mnistries. So I'm going through the mail. I'm like, well, let's see what this says. This is my confirmation. I open it up, and it says, congratulations, you've been approved. And I look at the date. And it was 10 days. On that Wednesday when I checked it, they said they had not looked at it, nothing. It had already been stamped, cleared, and mailed back to me. Done in 10 days.
Yeah.
10 days.
God can even handle the IRS.
I tell people when I speak now, if God can get the IRS to do something fast, he can turn your situation around like it's nobody's business. Yeah. You just don't even worry about that. So pretty much from that point, what happened was that we had everything in place. I told the board we were not meeting again until January. We all agreed to just kind of sit in that because there wasn't a whole lot you could do over Christmas. They were traveling. I was traveling. My family was traveling. So we just said, let's sit in this. Let's regroup end of January. So that's what we did. Everything just went down. So during that time, what I started realizing was that, especially towards the end of December, was that I wrote to the IRS that I was going to do certain things to keep my 501c3. And one of them was fundraising. Because if you don't know anything about a 501c3, you are funded either directly by what your mission is, or you're funded through donation. There's no money from anywhere else. So if you're not getting money from donations, you're not getting anything, which means you're not operating. And our mission, we had written our mission to say we wanted to teach people the Word of God so they could step forward in their relationship with Him. And so as I was walking through this, I kept questioning God, what are you doing? Why me? Why me? And one particular day I remember Him going, why not?
Right.
And I said, well, why are you taking teaching away from me? And I would hear nothing. And then one day out of nowhere, He says, I'm not asking you to leave teaching. I'm asking you to teach about me. And I went, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not taking it away. But I didn't go to college for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know all that. Okay. So we moved through that, and we had a board meeting. I told them, hey, look, I wrote these papers, we have to do it. So we went through and started saying, what does this really look like? And when I wrote the papers, I had to give suggestions. You're not held to it, right? But I had to give suggestions on what would potentially be ways we would raise money. And because we're big pickleball players, I was like, well, check. My husband's a huge fisherman. Bass tournament, check. And I knew enough about golf tournaments because of the college I went to, going back as alumni and riding on the golf cart, that I thought that was a great idea. Plus, I live on a golf course, so let's put that in there on the paper too. So we met as a board. We discussed all that. We agreed that pickleball would be the easiest. There was an opportunity in my neighborhood that I live in to possibly make that a really easy fundraiser, but we needed to fundraise before we fundraised. And so we did a quick online launch of fundraising. We had a $4,000 goal that we hit in 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it paid for a lot of the things to keep us operating just for a small amount of time, because we don't have a huge amount of expenses right now. But we do have, businesses do have expenses. Nonprofits do have expenses. You have to pay them or you don't operate. That's just how it goes. Yeah. So that led us up to pickleball. Yeah.
You had to go out and fundraise, and you were the one doing that.
Yeah, so we had to fundraise for pickleball. We were looking for sponsors. I had an amazing neighbor who I called to ask, how did that tournament work in pickleball the last year in Longwood? he has this amazing notion to say, why don't we pair them together? There were some things that you doing it with your ministry would help that we didn't do well, but I can help you with the other end. And so we started walking through this. He went and got all the permissions, he did all that stuff for me as the spokesperson. And so we decided to plan a pickleball tournament that was like 8 weeks away. And my job was to fundraise, which I've never really done a day in my life. So try to go out and get as many sponsors as I could to be able to pay for this adventure. In the meantime, y'all, so we're from Saraland, like you said. I've had a home there this whole time.
Yeah.
And I've had just different things in and out happening with that home. And it's always been a burden, especially during COVID, of just wishing I didn't have the house and just getting rid of it. But I just never could seem to have the opportunity. So during all this, I get a phone call from the people who are in the house currently, or were in the house. And they had told me a while back that they might be leaving because of some COVID-related issues with family. But something had happened again, and they were going to move out. But don't worry, because we think we've sold your house. And I was like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Y'all, they did.
Yeah.
He called me. My house was sold in 2 weeks. It was done.
Yeah.
I didn't even go. I didn't even go to Alabama.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't even have to go there. Like, I did nothing.
Yeah.
A house that wasn't for sale sold.
You didn't sell the house.
Which provided the money to have the backing to be able, if I didn't fundraise well, to be able to pay for this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. So to make pickleball short and sweet, sorry, it almost killed me. I had lots of reactions because there's a lot of rejection in fundraising, and you have to learn not to take it personally. And when people hear Christian, anything with the Christian word, they look like you just asked them to eat a chicken that's alive. And you see body language shifts. So it was either I would get people immediately to be like, yeah, I would love to, but I got way more words like no's, and that was my cue to get out really fast. Yeah. So, and I got physically sick from doing it. I broke out itching all over the place. I was completely spent. But we got 15 sponsors.
Yeah.
We raised $7,000 in sponsors. And I planned the pickleball tournament, which started out as raising money, that turned into giving a good experience to people, and that ended in being seeds, looking at each person. We had 72 players.
Able to help somebody with a medical need.
Yeah, we take a portion of all of our fundraisers and give back to people in the community locally that just have a specific need, that it will help them to have enough hope and faith to take the next step into whatever their journey is in that moment. And it doesn't matter if they're Christian or not Christian. Like, we just want to love on the community, because right now we're working on what our actual mission is, which is teaching and all that. But we thought, definitely when you teach, you're modeling, and to model Christ's love is to love on your community. Yeah. And so we raised $14,000. After we paid for the pickleball tournament and we helped all the families, we helped 3 families, we put $10,000 in the bank. During that whole season, God was prompting me about social media and podcasting. And let me tell y'all, I hate social media. Like, I despise it.
Yeah, you've been off of it for a long time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, tons. I was on Instagram, but it wasn't much. Like, it was just enough to kind of keep up with just the people I knew. And so I realized, though, with business, this is the times that you do this. And so I got onto social media, created accounts. Right before pickleball, like April-ish, we didn't have many followers, but then something crazy happened on Instagram, and one of my posts went bazonkers, because apparently when you mention people in, like, Stepping Foward Mnistries would be mentioned, over a course of time, ended up going from 15 followers to 700.
I remember you kept sending me screenshots.
Yeah.
Look what God is doing.
It was crazy.
He's doing it again.
Because it happened so fast.
Yeah.
And so that happened. And then around April, Facebook, I had a faithful 53 there, and I knew all of them.
And I was one of them.
And you were one of them. And my husband was the other one. Yeah. And my mama wasn't. You see where this is going? Yeah. So I made a post, which I'm pretty sure was Holly Furtick's voice, and it hit 1 million views. And out of 1 million views, I went from 53 to thousands. And I was just like, wow.
And suddenly.
And then all of a sudden, other things started taking off to where, like, we're up to 12,000, almost 12,000 right now. And conversations are starting to happen now, and we're able to love on people through social media. They're sharing their stories of faith. They're sharing their hardships and what do I do and what, I mean, and you do get a bunch of crazy stuff with social media too. I do get some haters. There are those Jesus haters out there, and they come too, but we don't, we're not there to bash people or hurt people. We let people speak their mind, but we're more there to encourage and lift up. And so my social media in 4 months went crazy. And I would always say, thank you guys on that, but I'd turn it back to God because it was God who put it on their hearts to like our page. He said something like, touch them. And what I had really done was when podcasting came to the table from the Holy Spirit, I said, no. Y'all, I'm not a podcaster. If you've listened to the last 3 episodes, we're not podcasters. Okay. And we're hoping from here we go up, right? Yeah. But I didn't want a podcast. Didn't have the money to pay for podcasting equipment, nothing. But God just kept pressing and pressing. And so finally one day I said, I don't have an audience, Lord. I'm nobody. Yeah. Who wants to hear some girl from Alabama? I am a nobody. Who's going to listen? And y'all, within 2 weeks, I had 10,000. It was at 10 then. I had 10,000 followers in less than 3 months.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying anything. I wasn't jumping up on my head or making myself disappear. I was just posting at night, hey, I want to tell you, have a good day in the morning, and I want to tell you tonight, have faith in this, rest in peace in this. Know God loves you. Know we love you. We want to pray for you. And that was all I was doing every single day. That was it. And they weren't even original posts, y'all. I was taking them from other people's posts. And just, if I felt it, it went on social media. And so that took off. Our church asked us, after pickleball, my church asked me to come and speak. Yeah. Actually, they asked me to do a few little small speakings, but then they asked me to do a full-fledged, make a lesson, make a plan. And I didn't know what to do. Yeah. And she used the famous words, the women's minister used the famous words, whatever God puts on your heart. Yeah. And in that moment, I was like, there ain't nothing on my heart at the second. What are we doing here? Yeah. And so I took some days to pray about it because she was like, don't answer me yet. Just really see what the Spirit does. And so I called Tanya. I'm like, there's nothing. I got nothing. What am I supposed to do? And so the Bible study was going to be the heroes of faith. Yeah, something very similar.
That's familiar.
Very familiar. And one day I was walking in my kitchen, and out of nowhere, God just says, deeper waters. Deeper waters. And so deeper waters started going. And then I was like, what about deeper waters? And he's like, I want to know why my people don't step into the calling. I want to know. So let's talk to them about that. I was like, well, okay. So we mapped out this plan that I thought it was going to go one way with the 12 disciples, and we were going to talk about how they modeled what it looks like to do that. In the literal last coming up, I had 8 weeks to plan. The very last minute, there was a shift. We couldn't get it to work out. It just wasn't working. We ended up shifting it, going a whole different direction, just that prompting from the Holy Spirit. And we presented that. Tanya flew to town and came to watch. It was really well received. Oh, yeah. I had a lot of women reach out via email or text and say, you don't know, I needed that. I'm right there. Let me share my story with you. Yeah. And it was just amazing to see God move. And one of my board members was there, and I won't forget this because and if you ask me how things go, Tanya knows. It's always the same thing. It was horrible. It was not good. I messed it up. There's a video on our webpage that I absolutely hate, that everybody else thinks is great, and I just wish it would go away. The very first time I spoke, which was back in Alabama, all places, because God's going to take you back to the place you don't want to go. Yeah, yeah. And so, so we did that, and it was well received, and God put it on my heart to start writing about. I'm going to work on expanding that. Yeah. So
the practical application, how to do what God tells you to do.
Yeah, when God, that's important. Yeah, it is. And so I don't know what that really looks like yet, but we've made it. We've walked through the seasons, right? So we went through the setting up, the structure, the organization, and now we're moving into our operational, and that's mainly what our mission really is. And so now we do have to have another fundraiser because that is part of our plan. And so we weren't going to have a golf tournament because our golf course closed for renovation until December. So that was well, that's out the window. Yeah. But I had this crazy chance. I'm doing these little air things, right? Chance encounter with a gentleman who put me in front of this guy at a golf course. And I did my homework, and it was going to cost way more money than we have in our account for Stepping Foward Mnistries. And so like deposits were going to be a question. Payment was going to be a question. So he's so great. The guy at the golf course meets with me. He takes me around. He gives me this shakedown, but he never mentions money. And I'm like, okay, so this has all been great, but we need to talk about money. Like, what's the terms? What's the contract? What's the deposit? And he's like, oh, no, we don't do any of that. And it was significantly less than what people who do this all the time, I called them. I was like, you said this and you said, they're like, you don't understand. This is a God thing. This is not how this should have worked. Like, I've never experienced this, and we've done golf tournaments for years and years and years. So that's where we are right now. Yeah. We are a full-blown ministry, and God has called us to step into this fundraiser. I am terrified.
You're always terrified.
I am terrified.
You're always terrified.
I'm terrified mainly, though, because it's about to be September, and we have one team, and like we need lots of sponsors. Yeah. We need 72 players. I'm hearing, though, that other places are struggling because it's just a bad time. Yeah. And so, guys, please pray for us because I'm about to hit the fundraising trail again. Our kids are starting school Monday, this Monday, which will, for you guys, 3 weeks, they'll be in school. Yeah. We're recording early. But they're starting school. Our littles are going to go to school for the first time for a couple of days. God really moved through that and nudged for my children to go so that he's asking me to invest in this. And so, yeah, we have a golf tournament coming up in November. And then I plan on podcasting. We have 13 episodes. This is the third one, so I got 10 more to go. Yeah. I'm excited about that. I hope that listeners hear it the way God wants them to hear it. I hope it touches what God's stirring in their life. And I hope to have some time. The golf tournament's so big, is so much bigger. You know, I had just enough courage from pickleball to be dumb enough to do this, to when God said do it, go, oh, okay, let's do it. Yeah. So my hope is that I begin to be able to start writing so we can self-publish, because this tournament for us is going to raise money for saving to be able to self-publish. It's going to help families for Christmas. We're going to help families if they need food, if they need stuff for their kids, whatever their Christmas needs are. Holidays are tough. And to be a parent who can't feel like they can provide is just a super hard place to be. And past that, we have some operational expenses. I mean, like I told y'all, there's bills. So, you know, all of our listeners out there, if you'll just pray for us through that, you know, that would be wonderful. If you're in the Houston area and you would love to take part in sponsoring with us or playing in our tournament, you can go to www.steppingfwd.org or go social media and find it there as well. We'd love to partner with you in sponsorship. We would love to have you come out and play and love on you that day and just celebrate what God's doing through this ministry and the relationships we're building. We also have opportunities for this podcast. Like if you have a business or just you're a family and you'd like to make a donation towards the podcast, where we just say, hey, this podcast is brought to you by so-and-so, or this business. We would love to talk to you about that. You can reach out to the comments or email us. That's all on social media and the other as well. But yeah, that's where we're at. And we're pushing it. Sorry it's so long, guys, but we wanted to finish it in this setting.
Yeah, we wanted to let you know where it started and where we are today, where God has brought us, you know, because it's important, I think, for you and for me to show people that, or to tell people that, you know, these are everyday things. We're real people living real lives, and God does this. I mean, you know, this is how God works in our lives, and we wanted to share that with you. So thank you for giving us an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for staying with us.
Yeah, and I hope if you've made it through all 3 episodes, you should email me and I'll mail you some cookies or something.
Yeah, because you deserve it.
We'll send you some cookies or something with a big fat thank you. But no, so yeah, we're going to wrap it up, guys. Man.
Yeah, we're excited to see what God's going to
continue. We are, and if you're wondering where we go next, I don't know. Yeah, golf tournament. Golf tournament. You know, I'm hoping to I'd love to come and speak, you know, in gatherings and churches, or go pray over teachers in schools. You know, I'm just looking for opportunities to be able to spread this ministry into people and to pour love into people's lives and to shed light.
And hey, if there's something we can pray for you about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please, you know, go to Stepping Foward on social media and let us know that, because we absolutely, when we say we're going to pray for you, we pray over you.
Yeah, we are.
Pray for you. Yeah.
And it's also on the website page too, there is a section for prayer where you can put your name, your information, and your specific prayer request. And I can promise you that somebody will definitely be praying over that.
We want to hear your stories.
Yeah, we want to hear your stories. We want to see what you need prayer for. We're just really excited. And again, I can't thank y'all enough. So, and again, this is the last time I'm going to thank you. This is episode 3 and it's your last thank you. This is all you're getting. So thank you for coming. Thank you for taking time away from your family and your life and your new grandbaby. I just appreciate you. Thank you for always rowing in the boat. We're constantly rowing. Next week is going to be episode 4 and of this season. And you know what? I'm not even going to tell you what's going to be on there. You're going to have to look at social media. Yeah, we're going to put on social media. I'll tell you who's coming. I'll tell you what it's about. Stay in tune with us.
Come find out.
Come back and find out. So we love y'all. We're praying for you. And this week, go step forward with Jesus. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Southern Soul Chats. We hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and valuable insights to carry with you through your week. We invite you to subscribe to Southern Soul Chats so that you never miss an episode. We are a branch of Stepping Foward Mnistries, a 501c3 Christian nonprofit, and we kindly ask for you to consider making a donation today. Your contribution will play a vital role in sustaining the podcast and allowing us to continue sharing these impactful stories of faith. As you leave today, remember your story is a part of a bigger narrative and your faith has power to guide your path. Keep stepping forward with hope, trust, and assurance that you're never alone. This is Dr. Miranda Ferguson. We hope you have a great week and keep stepping forward.